Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me or it's your first time here, I'm Jay and I'm a solo indie dev and artist. This is my game studio channel where I make devlogs, projects, or any other content doing with game development. For the month of May, I joined a game jam. It's the first jam I've done in 2 years and it's not the global game jam. For those of you who don't know, a game jam is when people from local or all over come together and either form groups or individually make games under a certain time frame that incorporates a theme, mechanic, or some other outline criteria. I joined the Big Byte Game Jam brought together by the Melanated Game Kitchen, Black and Gaming Foundation, and Jams and Joysticks. This particular game jam started on May 3rd and finished on June 5th. I have never done a game jam with this much time, so I was really excited. When I usually do the global game jam, I always signed up to do it at my school, and it was a 48-hour game jam where teams would come to the school and work for 48 hours straight. This event was a virtual game jam, meaning anyone in any place could join. My goal for this game jam was to initially join or build a team, do some networking, and find musicians to make music for some other projects I have coming down the line. Unfortunately, looking at my schedule, I realized working with a group might be an issue. I didn't want to join a team and not be able to pull my weight or end up doing very little. So I was planning to just create game assets or just be a floater for the different teams. After doing some networking with some of the participants in the breakout rooms, I decided to just work on my own project, as did a few other folks I talked to. I decided to do a 3D game since I thought it would be a nice break from 2D and a good refresher for modeling in Blender. The theme for the Big Byte Game Jam was collective power, which is when a group of people or beings come together to build power and work towards shared goals. The game jam also consists of a theme of food, and the group putting on this jam is called the Melanated Kitchen. So the food theme was beef patties. So along with the main theme, the first one was curry powder, and that was to make a Pikmin-like type game inspired by Nintendo's Pikmin series. The next one was allspice, use a non-violent form of power in your game. Then there's apple cider vinegar, which was make an experience with a narrative or gameplay focused around environmental solutions or social impact. And then lastly, turmeric, which was to explore climate futures and pull from the solar punk genre to create your game's world. The last thing was also similar to the theme for another game jam that was running at the same time called Just Play, a game jam for Justice by Centereach and Anima Interactive. So my goal was to initially try to submit for both, but I did run out of time and that ended up falling through. For my game, I made a solar punk kite flying game called Solar Skies. The goal of the game is that you have to fly this solar powered kite around to collect the sun's rays, powering the monoliths on each island. The power collected would then create a bridge from each smaller island to the large island in the center. Once all the islands are connected, the people could come together and finally have their annual potluck. For the first week, I started to create some 3D models in Blender. I wanted to do a simple low poly style, so I just used simple shapes and colors for most objects. I also just focused on making the main assets I would need to start building the project in Unity. The sun ray the kite flies through, the kite, the tutorial island, a windmill, and a tree. Once I had all that done, I made the starting island. For the second week, I started looking into how I was going to have the kite fly. I had somewhat of an idea of what I wanted to do, but the way I was thinking it would have more or less just been too rigid and not feel like flying. So I found this tutorial by Games Plus Jams called Flying Controls in Unity, and it works pretty good. It's hard to fly initially, but once you play with it, it's pretty fun. I wasted about an hour flying around the scene. I also created a few more environment assets for designing the different islands. For the third week, my goal was to make a few more 3D assets and start implementing the actual gameplay. The original plan was for the player to have to fly through a certain amount of rays to power the monolith of each island. The first island would be the tutorial for players to get comfortable with the mechanics, and then the other islands would have a time limit. I also wanted to show the more rays you collected, the more the monolith filled with a glowing color. There were also going to be 5 different islands that you have to do this for, and upon completing each island, you unlock their bridge and an ingredient for the dish. Unfortunately, by Wednesday of week 3, I was pretty sick and spent most of my time sleeping, if not doing my day job, so I lost a lot of time. All I managed to get finished were the rest of the 3D assets, and I started working on building the rest of the islands in Unity. For the last week, I continued working on the level design. I tried to design each island with its own unique theming or style that would be incorporated into the theme of the jam. I also started to create cutscenes for each island. This took me longer than expected. Initially, I was just going to create a new scene in Unity that would load each time a player collected all the rays from an island. Then once they exited the cutscene, they would start back where they left off in the main scene. As I was building this out, I couldn't figure out how to have the player and their progress be saved when switching between the play and the cutscene. cutscenes. I also felt like the game was going to be bigger than I wanted it to be. I was just going to make it a game you play in the browser. So I scrapped those scenes and built the cutscenes in the play scene instead. I created each cutscene in a canvas, then wrote a code that only showed a specific cutscene when the player collected a certain amount of rays. The problem with this is that I had to put the same amount of rays on each island. So every island only had 10 rings you could collect. This kind of made the timer redundant, but now players can use it to see how long it takes them to fly through all the islands. Another issue I didn't get to fix is that the player could pick up any 10 rings from any area and trigger the cutscene to load. And if you were on a different island than the one you were supposed to be on, you would get the wrong cutscene. When I created the code to show the cutscenes, I used an array to call them in order, but for some reason, after you collect the rays on the first island, it shows the second island's cutscene, then the first island's. I also found that some cutscenes dialogue don't type out and the player has to keep clicking through to get to the whole dialogue on certain scenes. In spite of all that, I was able to finish a playable build with music and cutscenes and the controls worked, which was pretty much my goal. So I was feeling pretty good and submitted my game 48 minutes from the deadline. I also made a promo video of my game that you can watch here as well as on the itch.io page. Later that evening we had the showcase and there were a total of 13 games that were submitted in the game jam. There were so many cool games, my personal favorites being Project EQ, Dark Where the Clouds, and Taliwa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. When the judges were initially playing my game, they had issues with the controls. I forgot to include anything in my instructions about how to use the cursor because you use the cursor to turn or keep the kite steady. I realized too late how difficult that is for a new player and how confusing it is to explain. But luckily they understood just enough to figure it out. The following Sunday, all of the games in the showcase were played live on Twitch by IntelliGame. So I did try to fix a few little things in my game. I redid my itch.io page, fixed the window size so it shows more when you play in the browser, but the best way is still full screen. I just chose not to fix the bigger issues because at that point I was just ready to move on, but it was really cool to see a streamer play my game. Solo game dev is fun but hard. You have to wear all the hats, all of them, even when you don't want to. Hitting all those issues with my game at the last stretch was frustrating. In normal circumstances, you can just walk away for a little while, rethink your code, or even start over completely, but in this case, that wasn't an option. It put me in crunch mode and not with any help to solve the problem. While it did help to stretch my creative muscle and give me a new type of experience, I'm glad it happened on a game jam and not a commercial project or something important. Another thing is the importance of playtesting. Had I had someone play my game even after I implemented the first island, I would have been able to make sure people knew how to play my game. Overall, I think I did a good job. My planning worked out for the most part, minus getting sick for a week. If you are looking to start making games at any level, I highly recommend joining a few game jams. It's the best way to learn who you are as a team player or as a solo developer. You learn how to deal with a timeline, you can experiment and meet some cool people along the way, and maybe even find a new passion project. As for Solar Skies, I may come back and fix a few things here and there, but it's pretty much shelved. I have another game I want to work on that I've been slowly brooding over for a side project. I'm also working on another larger game that I paused working on for this game jam. I technically have already talked about it in a few spaces, but I'm not making an official announcement yet. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions on how I can fix any of the bugs, have any cool game jam tools, tricks, or advice you want to share with me or other viewers, just leave a comment. I would also appreciate a like and subscribe to this video. Thank you. Bye.